Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. As you can see, I have uh, a PDF open right in front of me, and that PDF is titled StarGate Greatest Villains Tournament. The reason for that is quite simple, and there are actually a bunch of things that stack up onto each other. The first of these is I'm I probably haven't talked about it a lot, but I have uh, I have also watched Stargate every now and then. I can't say I've seen every episode, but I've seen enough to where I can say where I know what the gist of the show in general is uh, what that looks like. And I can very much say that I enjoyed it. It's not perfect TV. It's not really perfect sci-fi either, but it does have its moments, and it does have its strengths. And I do think that there are many more hits than there are misses, and that especially when you consider how long running the show and to a greater extent the franchise itself also is. And that prompted me to uh, find one of the executive producers or showrunners, Joseph Malazzi, on Twitter. He's available. You can find him at under the handle Ed Baron Destructo in case you're curious. And over this past week, which by the way it's the 18th of May as of the time of recording, um, he hosted a uh, he hosted a tournament of the 16 greatest villains in Stargate, and it is a and a tournament I have voted on, quite extensively, and and I want to give my my impressions on the matchups, the results, etc. The tournament is technically still ongoing, but it's pretty clear who's going to win, and even besides that, I have my own thoughts on it. Thoughts I will cover as we cover this bracket. Starting with match one in round one, Apophis versus Cowan. This will perhaps be a surprise to absolutely no one. Let me see something. Okay, I can do this. Let's move this a little bit. Yeah, here. Apophis went ahead. Like, it's pretty clear. He was the big bad for most of the, for the better part of the of SG1's first half. So him moving on is basically a given, especially compared to Cowan, who made it to what season two of Atlantis, and even then he wasn't even the most interesting Janai villain. We'll get to that soon enough. Next matchup, uh, Anubis versus Harry Mayborn. Again, no surprise here. Anubis made it through. Like he was such a major perspective shift when when he came in, whereas comparatively Mayborn was just kind of a scoundrel. Scoundrel who ultimately met a very intriguing happy end, if I may say so myself. Let me check something. Okay, volume seems fine. I'm moving ahead to the next matchup: Michael versus Rebel Carter. Okay, this is just bad. Like seriously, I I could legit see arguments for why both of these would be Final Four material. The fact that they are both matched up in the first round, I can't help but think that uh, the Joseph didn't really uh, uh, put a lot of thought into this bracket. It was just let's throw some names on a wall in an order and see what sticks. Um, anyway, yeah, my keyboard does that occasionally. It's why I got a second one. Uh, Michael went ahead, and honestly, that would also be my pick. It would be close, but legit, Michael's got it. Next up, we've got a matchup between Kolya and Sokar. And my pick for this matchup is, I'll say the same one that most of uh, Joe's followers had, namely Kolya. As I said, he was the much more interesting Janai villain, and actually had more of an impact and presence in his show. Sokar, Sokar kind of had a devil thing going on. However, he was very much all gimmick, all flash. There wasn't, you only when he actually showed up, he was a big deal for what one half of a two-parter. So nothing not particularly relevant or exciting. Next up, we've got an All Atlantis matchup: Todd versus Oborov, and this is the first point where my opinion diverged from from the opinion of the majority, because most people voted Todd as the character to move on. Though personally, I don't really see. I don't really think of Todd as having that much of a villainous presence. While yeah, he does. While he does have he's more of an antagonist really. Occasionally he did go against the crew of the Atlantis, but overall he has actually been more of an ally to them than anything else. So yeah, if I were to if this tournament were to go entirely by my whims, I would say Oborov moves ahead. Okay. Next up, we have Senator Kinsey going against Half-War. I can kind of see why, because both Senator Kinsey and Half-War have something of an unhealthy fixation with the members of the StarGate program. However, the result is still quite obvious. Senator Kinsey moved ahead. Half-War was only in 3 episodes, may I remind you, and one of those was the worst episode in Stargate, but it still has kind of a cult following the same way The Room has. So yeah. And then the next 2 episodes didn't really do anything major to really redeem her image. Kinsey, however, was more of a persistent threat, and did also have the means through which to meaningfully antagonize the Stargate program. So for that reason, I think him moving ahead is a fair bet. Next up, we've got Ball versus Fifth. This is a very unfair matchup for Fifth, because I have to say, of the replicator villains, I think he is actually the most intriguing, the most fascinating. And if you were to pair him against most other human villains, maybe even against Oborov, the other replicator villain mentioned, I really think he would move ahead, because he does have that edge in terms of distinctiveness and in terms of having an intriguing character arc. But when it comes to Ball, I'm sorry. Ball is legit one of the most interesting threats of SG1's second half, and when you consider that he was the last Goa'uld standing when their entire regime fell, this man has a lot of creativity, a lot of persistence, and does not back down from anything. He can find his way through almost any obstacle. So for that reason, Ball very clearly makes it ahead. Next up, we've got Adria versus Nirti. Nirti was. This is basically a sleeper, sleeper matchup, because Nirti was only showed up in 1 episode, but the impact she had kind of sent shockwaves throughout the uh, throughout the remainder of SG1 in terms of she was one of the first to introduce like human experimentation and more outlandish powers into the mix. Adria, for example, was the closest thing uh, SG1 Season 10 had to a big bad. And, you know, being played by Morena Baccarin very much helps, but even beyond that, she has an intriguing presence to her and a certain level of allure and the impression that she is like like a juggernaut, like unstoppable. And I think that makes her and that very clearly made her the obvious choice to move ahead. I agree, and so did most of the and so do and so did most of Joe's following. So next up in the second round we have Apophis versus Anubis. Two guys whose name starts with A, ends in S, and were major threats for about 4 seasons each, if I am to be quite honest. And this is another point where my opinion basically diverges uh, from the consensus of the uh, of Joe's fan base, because they voted Anubis to make it through. As I said, my keyboard's acting up. Don't think about it. And I very much see the appeal, because Anubis, when it comes to the threat levels and the possibilities that are introduced within the story by his presence, Anubis is very much on a different level, and he was written to be on a different level to introduce a new dimension of the threat that the Stargate crew is facing. But for my money, I still think Apophis is the more intriguing villain, because he does have because his connection to the Stargate crew is a little bit more direct, and the menace that he brought was more personal, more intriguing. So I would have voted him as the first semifinalist. Next up, we have another All Atlantis matchup: Michael versus Kolya. Both of these guys are relentless and relentless conquest machines to some extent. However, when you look at their personal arcs and journeys, I can definitely say Michael's is the more interesting one. Not just in terms of who he is as a character, which does help, but also when you consider his role within the story and how he also deepens that aspect of human experimentation that has been brought into the franchise. I can only say that he deserves to be an uncontested semifinalist. As I said, he is Final Four material, so that's very much fitting. Next up, we've got Senator Kinsey against Todd or Oberoff. I'm first going to talk about his matchup with Todd. And as I said, I considered Todd to be more of an antagonist rather than an outright villain. And to that end, he isn't really hostile to the to the Stargate program. Not really to the same extent that Senator Kinsey is. Also, his means of attacking them or of challenging them are somewhat underdeveloped and not exactly fleshed out enough. So in a direct matchup, I very much support Senator Kinsey moving ahead. Senator Kinsey, when compared to Oberoff, they actually have a lot of commonalities or interests, so to speak. They both oppose humanity's endeavors towards the towards the stars or through the Stargate program, but they do so for different reasons. The threat level they pose is, I'm not gonna say similar, but it is still intriguing to that end. So Oberhoff and Kinsey are actually a little bit closer matched up than I thought they would be, but I still think Senator Kinsey moves ahead. So yeah, in spite of a different result on one end, the end result is still Kinsey going into the semifinal. And next up, we've got Ball versus Adria. This is a matchup we've actually seen in during the run of SG1, and let's say that the winner of that within the show is also my winner. I think Ball is a more interesting menace than Adria, and even though Adria was the was arguably the most powerful villain in the franchise, or hell, most powerful character in the franchise, when it came to the direct-to-DVD movie sequels, um, I still think Ball edges her out, primarily because of his tactical prowess, his ability to innovate, think outside the box, and come up with really creative, really exciting strategies. To the point where the second direct-to-DVD movie was all about trying to defeat him. Next up, we've got Michael going up against Anubis or Apophis. Most of Joe's following went with Anubis. I'll say this much. in a direct showdown against Michael. First, I want to talk about Apophis versus Michael, and this is a point where, even though they arguably have equivalent levels of screen time, or they where they possess or their minutes persist for about as long, if you were to count like seasons of the show. I actually think Michael is the more would arguably be the more intriguing character in a in a matchup between them, because he has to some extent seen them at their worst, and he is committed to never becoming that again. And the actions which he undertakes in order to in order to get to that point, I think very much would carry him above Apophis. When compared to within my arrangements for the bracket, Michael will be moving to the final. If we were to compare my thoughts on Michael compared to Anubis, that would be one point where I actually think that's actually one point where I think the rest of the following actually has a good point, because while Michael does present an interesting dimension to the thread that he brings, Anubis does so to a higher degree, and for that reason, I think he is the more intriguing villain. He is the one that challenges the heroes in a more meaningful manner. So for that reason, I would also put him, and also for that reason, in this matchup, I definitely think Anubis would also move on ahead. If we were to do this as a league, that would be an interesting result, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, moving ahead to the second semifinal, we have Senator Kinsey going against Ball. As I've already said, Ball is creative, Ball is persistent, Ball is strategically minded to the highest degree, and it is for that reason that I think he would that he definitely wins out against Senator Kinsey. Even though Kinsey also has that strategic or tactical level to which upon which he can fall back, his resources and his ability to use them, I think, still pale in comparison to those Ball has at his disposal. So for that reason, he makes it to the final. And now we have the final. The official final, Ball versus Anubis, is last I checked still ongoing. However, however, I can say that for now, Ball is leading, and so yeah, it's it's fair to say that within the overall following that Joseph Malazzi has on his Twitter, Ball is very much the preferred and likely champion. My thoughts on Ball versus Anubis as a matchup are actually somewhat similar, because while Anubis needs to bring in ancient technology and really elevate the threat level he presents, through that end, Ball is still able to hang in there and present more creative challenges and obstacles for the characters, thereby pushing them in a more intriguing, more more outside the box manner, making for more entertaining TV. So, for my money, in a matchup between Anubis and Ball, I think Ball is the better villain. When it comes to Ball compared to Michael, Ball is still the better villain. I'm sorry to all the Michael fans who might be watching this. I am very much I can very much and very confidently say that Ball has the most intriguing story and the most intriguing, maybe not the most intriguing development, but the things that he is able to do and the ways in which he accomplishes his role do very much overtake those of anyone else. So for that reason, Ball is my choice for for the greatest villain in Stargate history. However, that being said, I have mentioned my issues with the way the seeding for this tournament went down. So even though it's been an interesting matchup, I think there could have been something else, something more, perhaps, done with it. And for that reason, hold on a second, I made up my own. So let's go for the. It's basically the same names, and I wanna go through all of the first round matchups now. Starting up here, first matchup: Michael versus Nearty or Nearty, however you want to say it. As I said, is the introduces or deepens that aspect of an aspect of human experimentation that the show has going on, and Michael very much was a victim of that. So pairing those people together is somewhat of an intriguing aspect. Then again, while Michael was a victim, he also was a perpetrator, which does lead to him being more, perhaps him being more intriguing. But it does also help strengthen the theme that the show is going for. That the thing that makes us strong isn't physical might or weaponry. It's the it's the abilities and knowledge that we gather outside of that, as well as the as well as the people we amass around ourselves. And when looking at these villains through that theme, I really think Michael and Nerdy are in an interesting matchup. Next up, in All Atlantis matchup, Colia versus Todd. Both of them are maybe not necessarily behind the scenes figures, but they are but they work more in the background, more towards furthering they've worked to further their goals in more discrete ways. So I think those two getting matched up is a would be somewhat interesting. Next up, we got Replicator versus Cowan. Um, another matchup that I think that I think speaks to the nature of these characters really. And allow me to paraphrase Replicator: all humans desire power, but some of them are too afraid to stand by their desires or don't think they can make it happen. Cowan is a very interesting play on that on that idea because he does actually strive to get more powerful. However, he still does so under the delusion that everything he does for the safety and protection of his people. Having him matched up against someone like Replicator who can take that delusion away is is a more interesting aspect. Final matchup on this side of the bracket is Anubis versus Sokar, two underworld slash afterlife deities, both of whom have a have an intriguing level of presentation and an intriguing dynamic to them. And I think their matchup, while perhaps obvious in terms of the results, is still presents an interesting contrast. Moving on to the second half of the bracket, we have Ball, and I swapped out Harry Mayborn for Osiris. I basically have no interest in Harry Mayborn as a villain at all, and I really think Osiris is a more interesting figure. An all-gold matchup with Ball having the advantage being a system lord, but Osiris does showcase some interesting levels of creativity, more and I think would be an would be an interesting would be an interesting threat, an upstart compared to a wannabe upstart. Next up, Senator Kinsey versus Hathor. Yeah, I just realized this matchup shows up shows up in the official tournament bracket and at the same place as well. And all I can say is that it's a good matchup. Like, both of them have an unhealthy fixation with the with StarGate Command, and both of them representing are intriguing starter villains for the for the main characters to overcome. And yeah, and I think that contrast would make for an interesting matchup. Next up, Apophis versus Fifth. Fifth just can't catch a break. I swear, he's actually an interesting character, and the antagonism he presents to the to the cast is somewhat intriguing. Unfortunately, there isn't really a lot that can be done with him, given that he only shows up in like 3 episodes. His biggest contribution is creating his ultimate destroyer. I have to say. But still, this is basically the matchup I'm left with. Next up, final matchup: Adria versus Oberov. Yeah, Adria once again gets the last matchup in the bracket, and it would have been really interesting to pair up Oberov with Fifth, given that given they're both replicators and given they have radically different worldviews and also roles within their circles. Nevertheless, I still think Adria is a more interesting matchup for Oberov in particular, particularly when it comes to how they what their attitudes are towards transcending death or ascension, because Oberhoff is very categorical. His thinking is very machine-like uh, in that way. Whereas and he very much opposes that idea, but still in a sense resents the ancients because they ascended, they ascended and in a sense abandoned his people and therefore their creations. So he thinks ascension is a is either tedious or it directly reminds him of his of his mommy and daddy, and which makes him which makes him miserable. Though it is handled with a little bit more grace than I'm probably mocking him for. Adra, by contrast, is basically half ascended since birth, as in she has, she has her abilities, she has her own, honed focus, and she also antagonizes the ancients from that perspective, but she does so in a more, intriguing, more, more maybe not direct, but more captivating manner, at least in my mind. So those two really represent an interesting contrast, so to speak. Maybe maybe I'll decide to go through this bracket next week. Should I decide to do so? But that's something to be decided within the future. For now, I would like to say thank you very much for your attention, because that was all I had to say about about this video. If you've enjoyed it, well then please like the video, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If you have anything to add, either to the first tournament, my thoughts on who should win each matchup, or on how these matchups would go, or on my or on my alternative bracket, then go ahead and leave them in the comment section. And if you'd like to see when my next video gets released, the one where I maybe talk about the about how this bracket would go on to unfold, well, that's what the comment section is for. Or where they I messed up. So you can leave your thoughts on the bracket in the comment description, and if you want to see where I get to talk about the matchups of this bracket, then please subscribe, and ideally also ring the bell so you're notified. Or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you. Regardless, make sure you get notified. I also have a main channel, which ironically, as of the time this video's production, actually has less subscribers than this one. It's linked in the description down below, right past all of my social media links. And yeah, that was basically all I had to say. If you want to hear my opinions on book-related or literature topics, go ahead and do just that. If you want to hear me talk about anything else, then stay on this channel and go through its extensive backlog. If you want to do anything else with the rest of your day, do it. It's your day after all. And yeah, without further ado, that was it. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.